Hello, my name is Andrei. I'm here with Alain Cardon, Master Coach of International Coach Federation. This time I have a rather more personal question or thing to share. It's a perception that I have on, I should call it traps maybe. I'm sure you will reformulate it much better. Traps meaning, as a coach, one can easily fall into many things that could not be very productive. One that I can think of now is getting trapped into your own, let's say, intelligent strategy and keeping it. And without being present and listening how it reacts, how the client reacts to your strategy. So you get focused on what you want to ask instead of the reactions and if it leads anywhere, your strategy. Another trap would be to get caught up in the context. That's mostly one of the most, let's say, often met, especially in the beginning as a coach. You get caught up in the context, in the story. And I think the beauty of coaching is to be fully present, but really see outside that context and take the client into beautiful, new, original perspectives and make him think, stimulate it, provoke the client.
Now, like you said, I mean, to come back to the trap idea, we can perceive this as traps, and we can also perceive this as normal communication. In other words, when you communicate with somebody, they come with content, and you listen to the content, and you're going to build on the content, and probably get caught up in the content. It's a normal conversation. In a way, that's what we're doing now.
But as a coach?
As a coach, we could say it's a trap, but at the same time, it's just that as coaches, we need to train on different habits. Okay? And of course, for coaches, whether they're beginner coaches or even more advanced coaches, one of the dangers is always developing habits and getting caught up in the habits, even if they're coaching habits.
Exactly,
But in the beginning, of course, we don't have coaching habits. We need to develop coaching habits, which is not listening to the content, but more to the frame of reference and how to expand the frame of reference and become transparent. In other words, not be caught up in my own ego and my interesting question was going to be a powerful question. And I lose it, obviously. But if I'm really with the client, something's going to pop up from our relationship. So those can be considered traps in the beginning that we haven't yet developed some coaching habits, real coaching habits. But there is a future also trap, which is if we develop some real coaching habits, they may in turn become a limit. And therefore a trap. In other words, how do we keep on expanding and changing our habits? I would almost say it's good to change habits, whether it's for a better one or not, but just to keep learning how to change. Because the problem is getting into ruts, getting into habits, and saying, okay, now I've got it done, I'm a good coach, I'm an MCC, I've got nothing else to learn. It's a trap. And it comes back to this idea that, well, of course we need to stay humble and keep saying to ourselves we don't know and changing and questioning ourselves at the end of every coaching session and sequence with the client. To question myself, which is, in a way, what could I do differently next time? Or what could be another strategy that could be just as good? It doesn't mean what I did was bad or a trap. It means there's always room for variety, change, exploration.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another danger that I can think of is in this relationship or partnership to respond to the person, not to the idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love to challenge or be challenged on ideas, because then we get very subjective, and it's not about him or her, it's about where and what and how and all this, with him or her in the middle, but growing and evolving. So not get stuck on the ego, as you say, but on how can I expand my own territory as a client, and how can I provoke the client to expand his own territory without thinking of the person or of me. Being very present near the person, but being very focused on his ideas and on outer limits of his ideas. So I like this danger and non-danger, actually, at the same time. It's a paradox of being present and caring about the person, but not responding to the person, but to the ideas and its outer limits, going into really beautiful new perspectives.
I think it's also interesting to respond, maybe not to the person, but to the type of relationship that is happening. In other words, how is what's happening between the coach and the client an indicator of the type of relationships we establish and the types of ways we explore with other people or not, or how we get stuck with other people. In other words, by really keeping a focus on the quality of the relationship between the coach and the client, I think the coach is going to learn how to develop better relationships or different relationships. And the client is going to learn how to explore differently in relationships from what they usually do. So there's something about the content of what's going on with the client concern, but there's something about the process that affects the content. And it could be just as useful to be really aware of what's going on in terms of my capacity as a coach to relate and be with a client.
Speaking of awareness, I think it's a beautiful topic that maybe you can develop at a time. It's one of the most beautiful levels from my perspective in coaching, to also listen to yourself. What is going on with yourself while you are by your client, and to share it. And it always has something to do
with the client issue.
With the client issue.
And with the coach's life.
Also. What happens to me while you talk, it has to do with you in one way or another. And that's a beautiful level. They say coaching is accompanying client's dialogue. I think there's more levels, right? It's also listening to...
I'd like to give an example on this, for instance, for myself. I sometimes feel frustrated, for instance, in a relationship with a client, where I feel the client is moving, but I also feel there's a lot of potential the client is not developing, and I sort of want to push, and I want to... I started feeling this urge of, come on, go there, develop this, you have it in you. And when I feel this urge, now, it used to be a trap. I used to, just go there. And now I'm wondering who in the client's environment wants to push the client? How is the client also creating this with other people that I want to push them,
and you share it.
If it's not a rule, but I notice, like you say, that when I share it, saying, I'm feeling this urge to drive more and push you, and you have potential. I'm not going to do it. I'm just wondering, in your issue, who's just waiting for you to go there and do it. Who's maybe pushing you, and it may not be useful for you. Maybe you need the time to mature and do it your own way. But just so you know, I feel the surge and I won't act on it, but continue, okay? And then let the client go. The client may look around and see how in their environment there is a driving force or people with higher expectations and impatience or whatever I'm feeling. So this is a sort of systemic thing that we both know and practice today, and I think it's a very important presence, like you say, to what I feel, to how it's linked to our relationship with the client, how it's linked to the client's issue. And the trap there, to come back to your initial, would be to say, okay, I'm going to act on it because I have this urge, or I'm going to hold it back but not share it.
That's important,
Because if you hold back as a coach, some energy is not going into the process, and the client may feel you're holding back. So there's a lot of, we could say, traps or different strategies that if you don't explore all of them, it becomes a routine. It becomes a habit, a bad habit.
So now I understand that traps can become opportunities or potentials.
Yes. And in a way, habits, we could almost say any habit is a bad habit because it's a habit. And as a coach, as soon as you're aware of a habit and you start changing it, you're actually expending potentials and becoming much more into something that's alive, because actually life has no habits.
So maybe that's why it's good to transfer the idea that on one hand it's good to also be the client, not also the coach. As a coach, to be a client, so that you get exposed to different things and perspectives. You don't get stuck in your own habits. To get supervised, right? And
well, that's another aspect, but it's to be a client when you're with the client.
Yes,
okay. In other words, when you're with a client, what is the work that you're doing on yourself as you accompany the client? Because the client is there to help you work on yourself in a way. Even though the coach is paid, the coach is paid to work on himself too. And then, of course, the whole idea of supervision and working on how you develop habits with clients, or you don't have, or you need to develop skills. This is somewhere else, it's not with clients, and there the coach pays and becomes the client for supervision. The supervision work, that's very important too, yes.
Sometimes I tell my clients that I should pay them. And speaking of habits, I do have the habit, which I don't think I should change for the moment, to ask myself from the very beginning, what is the connection with me? There is a connection there. I attract people somehow that and their issues, and we resonate in somehow. And there's a lesson for me in each of the story and in each of the clients.
Now, for me, that's true about life in general. It's not only in coaching,
of course,
but to become a coach and being aware of that is developing the awareness that everybody you may meet in the street or in the subway or whatever. Whenever there's a meeting,
it means something.
There's a reason. There's something there, and you're both responsible for it. And what you make out of it together is really, what life is about. And that's what the coaching profession is about too. I agree.
Beautiful, both responsible for it, right? That's the beauty in coaching. I mean, I respect consultancy, I do, and I did a lot of consultancy, a lot of trainings, but now that I'm so in love with coaching, I respect that this time in coaching, relationship is about mutual effort. You don't stay there and listen. Rather, I stay and listen and you work, but actually we both work. And that's beautiful. And we both grow.
Well, and then
That's-
hopefully, we could say hopefully, sometimes it doesn't
I'm
work.
counting on that.
Yes, but this is the objective of coaching. Now, of course, in some cases, there's a bad meeting. There's a relationship that neither the coach or the client is ready for, and in some cases, it's better to say, let's put a stop to it.
Yeah.
I'm not appropriate for this client. This client is not appropriate for me. We're not moving. Who can I refer this client to, and how could I, work through this in supervision or elsewhere? But the client isn't paying for a negative experience, and I'm not into this field for negative experience. So knowing how to say stop sometimes is also useful.
It's called professionalism.
Yeah.
Being professional is crucial today, right?
Putting a limit to things.
Yes, yes. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.